Hello, William.
Hi,
How
I'm
are
here.
you? Very well,
You,
thank you. And you well?
I'm fine, thanks. You hear me?
Yeah, very good. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I got you.
Wonderful. It's all nice and clear too, which is great for Skype because sometimes it is and sometimes it's not. So
It's,
there you go. There you go. So whereabouts in the world are you at the moment, William?
I'm in Switzerland. I'm at home.
Wonderful. Well, there's no place like home, sir. That's for sure. Do you mind if I start firing a few questions at you then?
Yeah, no problem. Ready for it.
Okay. Well, really, I guess the first thing to ask you really is how it all started with you and music. What was the thing that got you into your music?
This is childhood stuff. I don't know exactly when it was, but I remember being stuck to the radio as a kid. And in those days, it was just this, those blue or whatever rediffusion boxes that are up in the corner of the
Yes.
kitchen with the one knob with the wires that go all the way to, it's the speaker coming all the way from the amp in town.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, and I couldn't play it loud. My parents weren't into, my dad most of all, loud music, no. So I was so small I'd be standing on the kitchen counter, even on stuff, to get my ear up to this speaker and just turn it on long enough to listen. And that was kind of like, I guess, what you would call the traditional old national radio. Everything from Dolly Parton, and then on Sundays lots of gospel or church music, and some Bob Marley every now and then,
Yes.
then during the carnival times and calypso. But it wasn't really you wouldn't be listening to Led Zeppelin. So
No.
I kind of I kind of got my basics really on. I still tend to say this on really quality music produced and written by very traditional people. A lot of folk, a lot of good traditional content. And this is kind of like where I am still today. I really enjoy when music is not only good, but it also says something good and gives you something good.
Sounds absolutely right. Sounds
That's
absolutely lovely.
that's kind of where I come from. And then later, of course, begged my parents later for a tape deck or something, and then I started pirating as much music off the radio onto my cassette as possible so I could listen to it. But yeah, that was years later.
So, what sort of things did you like to record? What was the music when you were sort of, I suppose, in your early teens that you
Yeah.
really liked?
Well, there were two programs. Of course, it's pretty typical. It was anything kind of coming out of the States that was, let's say, not necessarily sourced out of our national archives,
Yes.
which would be like the Hit Parade or Top 40 with this famous guy. I can't remember his name. Top 40. There was some reggae special stuff also on Friday evenings or Saturday afternoons, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Where you'd be hearing stuff. Maybe if you missed the program, maybe it would be only time you'd ever hear it. So I just sat there trying constantly to get as much of it in as possible.
Wonderful.
Those programs I really ran after with the tape deck. Otherwise, I'd just be listening, because it'd be the same program all over just like normal radio. They play
Wonderful.
it, so they play it.
Yeah, sounds absolutely great. And who was the big American DJ? Was it Casey Kasem? He was the voice
Yes,
of.
that's it.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
it.
yeah. Wow, yeah, because he was the voice of Shaggy and Scooby Doo, wasn't he? Casey Kasem.
Oh, he was. Way to go. That is funny.
Well, there you go. Those memories. But so what got you singing? What got you singing and doing things with instruments? What happened there?
Well, the same thing as it was the radio. It was those early years where it hit me so hard. It gave me goosebumps. It'd make me cry. It was like that kind of music was like listening to a great story.
Yes.
From a great storyteller. Because the whole music and the drama involved in the music, or the emotion in the voice, and all those things, they really wrapped me up and hit me very deep from very early.
Yes.
So it was pretty much a kid listening to a great storyteller all the time, and I kind of didn't like the tunes that didn't do that to me. So I don't know. I guess that's where my that root came from, and then the wish to play music came slowly after that, because I remember somewhere along the line, little things happening. Like I was outside singing. I must have been about 5 or so, singing Three Little Birds, Bob Marley. It was one of my favorite kids' tunes. You know, it's easy for a kid to sing. And my mom looked out the window and she said, "Oh, I thought that was the radio." You know, of course she was just trying to make me chuff, but it really struck me. Then that thought led to the next thought, like, but of course somebody has to actually play this music for it to be on the radio. Somebody does this music. I mean, it's something that you can do. You know, and until then I had not really thought about it. I just thought there's little men in the radio or whatever. I don't know. And that started to open things up. But I was around 12 years old when I finally picked up the guitar. I played some piano and stuff, but my dad wasn't really happy with too much practicing. So I needed something a little more private than the piano in the living room. So I picked up my mom's very old classical beginner guitar, and we fixed it up really rudimentarily and got me some strings, and I started then. Actually, the first tune I ever wrote was, because I am still pretty much music illiterate, as in those days too. I had this Beatles anthology collection book that I got from my older half-brother, who said, "You want these?" And I was like, "Yeah," but I mean, I could read the English, but I couldn't read the music. So I just flipped through the titles, you know, and look at them. And I didn't know all the songs, because Beatles, you'd have to have records to know all the songs. Only very few of them you'd know. Maybe Imagine or something like that, or Love, 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 you know. And I found this one called Lady Madonna, and I read the text, and I found it so inspiring that I wrote my own version of Lady Madonna, how I kind of like imagined it should sound. And it turned out to be the chords of Angie with my own text on it. Angie Rolling Stones. It doesn't matter. Those were the chords I had at my disposal that I could kind of grip. And that's where it started. I actually enjoyed my own sound. It gave me goosebumps. So from then on, I just kept doing it. That's innocent wonderful. At first, and afterwards, people started saying, "But that stuff is really good. How old are you?" And slowly it turned into me quitting university later and trying music.
Wonderful, because you went to Switzerland for university, didn't you? In engineering, was it that you went there?
Yeah. Well, let me just put it this way: I was always really good at school. I was a typical, just a good boy, my dad's son, you know, and it wasn't. He didn't really want me to be anything sketchy. He wanted me to have a solid foundation. You know, he also, I guess, for himself, wanted to be able to say, "My son's a doctor," or whatever, or has a doctorate. So I followed that plan because I like learning. I have no problem with school or learning or exams and stuff. So I kind of neglected the music to the hobby. I left it to the hobby side of life.
Yes.
And but I knew pretty much very early, around that same time, 12 years old, that I just needed to get off the island. I needed to go temporarily or permanently, didn't matter. I just needed to go and see what else there was out there. So that motivated me also to do great A levels. I did maths, physics, chemistry, and further maths, you can imagine. And I got great grades, won a scholarship, which I refused because it tied me down to actually promising to finish.
Yes.
I had this kind of premonition, and it came out that way. Somewhere along the line, I was playing in too many bands because people heard me singing and listened to my songs, and they invited me to their practice room, and then we set up a band. So that's kind of like how it. Have I deviated from the question? I do believe.
Well, I think you did incredibly well with the question, to be fair, because we now have a great understanding. There was nowhere that I could find where I could actually read that part of your life. So, for you to share that is absolutely fabulous, and thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you too. Looking back, I just, how looking back, if you're lucky, when you look back, things just make sense.
Yes.
So I obviously always had this thing in the back of the drawer, and coming here to Switzerland, because my mother's Swiss, and yes. I got a Swiss passport. When I applied for it, I got the passport, and that just gave me the door where I could kind of like get into a situation where my own voice was in my head and not just not just my obedience to my parents, you know.
Yes, yeah.
So, and that slowly switched, and I was able to follow my path. I'm happy about it. I don't regret a minute of it. I only regret not finishing my studies, because it's also something that I'm very, very interested in. That has become my hobby. I kind of meddle around in the garage with electronics and motors and stuff.
Sounds like great fun. And you know, when you're doing things you love, that is always very, very easy and fits well with, you know, with the person, so to speak. I was reading because you got quite a sort of an influence, sort of going Bob Marley and Dionne Warwick, and then sort of Nashville and a little bit country too. And of course, your new album being called Open Country, you know, it. I feel there's sort of that country influence there. Rain in Portland seems to have that sort of countrified influence.
Gospel-y kind of,
definitely.
Kind of revival kind of feeling to it.
Yeah, because you can definitely feel, because there's the reggae sounds behind it. You know, your instruments have not been taken away from the reggae sound, but it comes across as that, as you just said, that sort of revival, sort of gospel / country kind of feel. And you know, it's an interesting tune. I really, really love how interesting that is.
For me, music is well. Let me just put it this way: my aim is not to go over people's heads. I want to play people's music. That is just simply the music that has always touched me. Be they cowboy ballads, or be they, proud songs of a nation. I say patriotic, historic, you know, or be they sad folk songs of great loss and pain, or struggle, or even angry songs of rebellion and criticism. Those are the songs that I find have always and will always move me, and I see sense in that work, because you're literally having a worthwhile conversation with your audience. You're not just small talking. And anyone who knows me knows that William is terrible at small talk. I just, after 5 minutes, I just get up and go. You know, because
understood.
I just think, especially in these times that we're living in now, it's important to share everything you're thinking about seriously, and it's sometimes quite how do you say, quite easy to just not want to talk about the real world. But I find music, as an artist, it's my job. I've taken up at least that opinion. That is my job and my license to talk about things that other people don't get to shout out loud.
No, that's really, really great. And of course, the new album has quite a variety on it. I mean, you've got some very new sounding reggae there, and you got some very old sounding reggae there. You know, with the Toots and the Maytals and the Heartbeat Pop and Mento. You know, those two sort of rubber dub tunes, I think, are absolutely fantastic. Very authentic sounding, back in the day kind of, you know, wonderful vibe to them. And then you've got sort of your power reggae and your things like For Your Love. What a wonderful tune that is. And it's such a variety there. It's so fresh to get a new reggae album from one artist that goes on a bit of a journey, you know?
I'm glad you like it. It's if you've heard any of my previous albums, I can't stick to one style, and that has always been criticism from the industry. That's why I don't really work, so to speak, mainstream industry. We work from at home. Me and my wife, we're the label. I keep saying I'm the baker shop down the road. It's up to me to keep my customers. I don't want to be a big international, company just selling any old bread. I wanna have my few customers, but they're my neighbors, they're my people. I'm one of them, and they keep me and I keep them. You know, so that's the philosophy all the time. So my music does not stick to one thing. I stick to what I love. So on my previous albums, I've jumped from reggae to folk, but I've sometimes been very folky or very country. and then back to Curtis Mayfield, and then into harder kind of rockish, funky stuff, and sometimes just plain old pop. But most of all, it's the songs that I like. I don't care for any particular style. I couldn't diss one style and raise another up. I could merely say I don't like this tune, or I don't like that tune, I prefer this tune, but it doesn't matter. I can compare very easily Curtis Mayfield to Dolly Parton and Kenny Rogers. It's no problem for me.
You see, the thing, William, is there. I mean, an industry that looks at talent like yours and says that, you know, that extra talent that you have to be that versatile is a disadvantage. I mean, no wonder there are so many independent people out there now, you know, because who wants to be told that? Because you're talented and you can be all of those genres or any mixture, they're seen as a disadvantage. I can't understand that at all. But hey, you know, I'm not a big label.
I know. The way I see it is this, you know, everybody has to find a job.
Yeah.
And some people are not just satisfied with finding a job. They take their luck at finding somewhere where they earn money and turn it into, I know how it is done and no one else does. Mm. And that has been happening in all industry. In all industries, someone comes up with a great idea. I mean, no music industry ever invented the radio. No music industry ever invented the CD. And they've never really written a song either. They just have invented the market and stuck themselves between the market and the artist, and thus earn their money.
Yes. Yeah.
Now the days of your manager dude, which was very vague in the beginning, he just did everything for you, running around and sweating his guts out to get you a gig, to get you a this, to get you a that. Those days are gone. Mm. It's all nicely defined. We earn everything. You're lucky to have ever met us, so please just wait, you know. And that just doesn't work anymore. There's no reality in that. I tell people ask me, and depending on the person, if they understand the industry a little deeper, I'll tell them some details like that. Mm. But on the whole, if someone does not understand the industry, let's say one of my friends who has nothing to do with music asks me, I'll say, look, why would you work with people who complain 24/7 that their work is horribly going awry and that the business is collapsing and that there's no way to do anything right anymore and it's all in the bucket already? Mm-hmm. Yeah. You wouldn't sign a contract with people like that, because why would you give your precious work to someone who swears to God everything's collapsing anyway?
Yes, yeah.
You know, and that's also something I don't understand. I have a friend of mine who's a real optimist, and I use this quote from him. He says, "Look, man, forget about millions. You need 10,000 people in this whole wide world to send you £1 a month, and you're very, 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 very well off. You know."
Yeah. Absolutely, very true. You know, and that's very, very true, William. And just talking about the inspiration, because you're saying that essentially this reggae album is possibly the first sort of full reggae album that you've done, because the mood took you for that moment. But so what gave you the inspiration to go that route?
Well, I'd done 3 albums before, and those albums, I mean, I've always been, if you look at my history and what I told you about how I was a hobby musician during my secondary school time, I've always had to do everything myself. There was no one else in my family playing any instruments or really interested in any of that stuff. It was like my little private lab where I just play the guitar, keep my songs to myself, write them down. Yeah. So I developed this habit of working alone, and because I wasn't qualified and also not very sure of myself, from the very beginning, I kind of went into the studio all alone. With a lot of luck, a friend of mine needed a break, and he just handed me the studio for I think 2 months and just said, pay the rent, and this button does that and that button does that, and you'll figure out the rest. And that's how I recorded my first album, and that continued over a period of 3 albums, the third one being I recorded at home in my own home studio.
Yes.
All alone, playing all the instruments and improvising whatever I could. Sometimes I used the computer, sometimes I was banging on a piece of steel or something. Yes. And I got tired of that. my ego was very satisfied with those 3 albums. I
Hmm.
was like, okay, I know how it sounds when I do everything myself. I'm tired of pulling it all out of one source. I wonder what will happen if I just take my songs to guys that I think can do the job and say, here are the songs, I'll play it for you, listen to this, or how would you play it?
Yes.
You know, and that's what I did. I mean, it could have been Cuba, it could have been States, it could have been anywhere, but some of the songs were pointing at reggae, and they were pointing at Jamaica, and then there's a whole heap of questions following. Do I go to some big city studio? You know, and I was thinking to myself, no, they're just going to make me all unsure again, because I don't work like the so-called professional, you know.
Mm.
I sometimes I don't know what I want, because that's a wonderful part of being creative.
Well, creativity
You know?
comes from that. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And going to a big studio with the clock ticking on you, it's the wrong place for my kind of working. I've learned that really solidly over the years, that is not my environment. Either I go into a studio and work for someone else who knows exactly what they want in that kind of setting, or it's more of a let's see what we can get out of it. The result is what counts, and not the clock ticking away.
Well, then it's organically grown, not
exactly.
forced. Yeah,
exactly. The result counts, and all the rest doesn't matter. How many tricks or stations you have to pass until you get there. So we were really lucky to find Axe Studios, Devin Bradshaw's backyard studio, like my backyard studio, just like me.
Wow.
And what an excellent human being that man is. I mean, and the people around him, of course, are also of that type. And it was amazing. I mean, we quarrel about stuff, and then we work on it again, and it was like really it was music. It was nothing else but music. And they loved the tunes, and I loved them, and they loved me, and it was great.
Well, that's absolutely great, and you can hear that in the album, because it's absolutely amazing. It's a lovely album. I've pretty much played the whole thing on air, you know. Thoroughly enjoyed every single track, and
Thank
you know,
very much, man.
No, it's just the way it is. They're great tunes, and
strength.
So what's the aim? What are you working on now, or do you have another album in mind? A different style? What sort of things are you thinking of for the future?
Well, the more albums I make, the harder it is to think ahead. You know, there's less particular aims that you have. It's more back to I just want to write some really good tunes. I got a whole bunch of stuff. I don't know where it's going to take me, but that's how the last album started, so I'm not worried.
Good place. Yeah.
And we'll see. Right now I'm still touring this album out. Okay, and here in Switzerland, I hope we're going to be releasing it, of course, in England on the 15th, I think. And I'm going to be in England for some interviews at the BBC. We hope then in autumn, late autumn probably, to do a few gigs, at least one, but I hope there's more than just one, in and around London. And we'll see what happens. It all depends on how much work I will be honored with. You know, if I tour England or the stuff, there's something happening also in Germany. We'll see how all of this goes as to, you know, when I'd have time again to make a brand new album. But I don't know. I really, and I don't think I have to know right now exactly what I'm going to do. But I got quite a bit of tunes coming, but they're all over the place. Some of them are Jack Johnson, some of them are Bob Marley, and some of them are Curtis Mayfield. I don't know what's going to happen.
Sounds like the next album is going to be a mixture of genres. So that's wonderful, and what a great idea. So when you come to London, please let us know where you are, because I'd love to come and see you live. I really would.
Great. I'll send a newsletter or something like that around anyway.
If there's anything you want to say to our listeners, if you want to point them at your social media, websites, Facebook, or just tell them where they can buy your music because they're going to be interested, then, you know, please feel free to do so now, by all means.
My website is williamwhite.ch.
Yeah.
You know, and on Facebook you'll find me too. And most of all, I'd like to say thank you very much for listening to my music. I'm overwhelmed by very warm welcome in England, and thanks a lot. I hope to see you all soon.
Well, very much looking forward to seeing you, William, and thank you for your music. It's wonderful, and certainly we thoroughly enjoyed the half of the album that we've got, and I'm sure we'll enjoy the other half when we get it. So, fabulous. Thank you so much indeed.
Thank you for taking the time.
And you, sir. And you. It's been an absolute pleasure, and hopefully not too long before we speak again.
Yeah, I hope so too.
You take care now, my friend.
Bye-bye.
Have a great day. Bye now. Bye.